Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So as usual, I do content on psychology, including the Myers-Briggs personality types, the Enneagram types, as well as other cool psychology tips. So if you are interested, you can follow me and subscribe, as well as, access my Instagram at personality story. So I also have a merch store for the 16 personality types. So if you would like to take a look and get your own t-shirt or hoodie, you can explore it in the link in the description box below that is catered to your personality type. So today I think I'm making a video that is a little shorter than usual, but it is very useful for you to implement in your own daily life, and it is something that I personally have been using. So if you are interested in this technique, I would say it's also a quick hack, a quick life hack. I would say it's called the Introverted Intuition Reframing method. Anyway, this is just a casual name that I made it up myself. It's not like a formal, term. But basically, if you are new to cognitive functions, introverted intuition is the dominant function of the personality type of INTJs and INFJs, and it is basically a function that taps into the subjective creation of meaning and interpretation. So what introverted intuition does really well is to look at what is going on and have our own meaning and interpretation of that particular facts and events. And we are also really good at creating seeing patterns, at withdrawing conclusions, at basically seeing the meaning behind the data or behind the sensory evidence, right? So it is a very subjective function because it is based on our own personal interpretation. So what is really powerful about introverted intuition is that you can use it for obviously both positives and negative causes, because how you interpret something is entirely up to you, right? Introverted intuition is also really good at creating your own vision and your own purpose, because it allows you to align yourself with basically what you can see yourself doing in the future. So this is why people with introverted intuition, whether it is in your dominant function or your second or third or fourth in your value function stack, if you have introverted intuition, you can use it to your advantage because it is very powerful, it is very imaginative, right? Use the power of introverted intuition to create the meaning that you want to see in your life rather than the other way around, right? Some of you may have been using it negatively without knowing because you have been, interpreting things in a negative way. But now that you know that it's really good at reframing situations, you can actually start to use it in a positive way. So I'm going to give you some real life examples to illustrate this point. One way is using the past negative experiences to your present or future benefit. So a very common way to do that is to use your positive interpretation of the past to fuel your life goals or your purpose, right? And this is something that obviously it's not just limited to introverted intuition users, because we essentially have all the functions. It's just whether we value it or not. So even non-introverted intuition users can also watch this video and learn from basically how you can do the thing yourself. This is very common among if you look at famous people, for example, people who are really successful. When they look back into their past experiences and they talk about their childhood, a lot of them actually do not have a very smooth sailing upbringing, right? They might be, some of them might be bullied in school, some of them might have come from poverty. They're not like all, most of them, in fact, are not born into rich families and so on. But because they chose to interpret their past in a positive way, they see, for example, they see poverty as not in a victimhood complex, right? They're not seeing it as, oh, I'm going to be stuck here forever and I'm destined to be poor. Instead, they choose to interpret, right, their past as fuel to become successful. So it's basically like using the subjective power of meaning creation, right? They see the past as, oh, because I have a very, impoverished environment, like I was brought up in a very like scarcity mindset. Now I have all the more the motivation and determination to break out of this generational curse, so to speak, and now I have more determination to become successful. And that can be in different areas, right? They can become actors, they can become directors, they can become, maybe a basketballer if that's their thing. So it's basically using it to whichever situation that speaks to you. So for me, for example, growing up, I've always wanted to be a writer, and this is something that I've always known that I wanted to do, right? And of course, like there are certain things that challenges that I went through. And one of the challenges, which I think I've mentioned in other videos as well, is that I definitely did not have the best school experience when I was like a teen or like younger. So there were definitely situations that were difficult during that time. But I remember even at that age, right, when I didn't know anything about, reframing and all that, it just naturally came to me whenever I experienced something negative in school, right? Like I felt like, oh, I didn't belong or people didn't understand me. What I thought to myself was, um, this is something that has to happen, right? Because I am going to use this experience, right, to help me to get to my eventual destination of becoming a great writer. Because as you know, for a creative person, you basically need stories, right? And a lot of times the stories tend to come from, not so great emotions, like that there's always like the emotional charge, like you have to understand a certain experience in order to write about it. And obviously it's fictional, but like there's always inspiration from daily life. So in the past, whenever this would happen, and without me knowing anything about like the current psychology hacks, I was already implementing it, right? Like subconsciously, I was saying, thinking to myself, like, oh, all these had to happen, right? Because I'm destined to be, a great writer. And I know it might sound very, very delusional for people who are not used to this kind of self-talk, but without knowing it, I was actually helping myself to get closer to my creative goals, because I was thinking that the negative experiences in school were normal, right? They were things that had to happen. And so I wasn't like resisting. Of course, I was like not very happy with some of the situations, that I was also able to see it as in a positive light. So actually, this situation, this mindset has helped me a lot of times, because even when I was also confronted with like difficult work situations, like a few years ago, I also thought to myself, I could have used this experience to fuel my creativity, which it really did help, because I wrote a short story on that experience, but obviously like completely revamping it and fictionalizing it. And that story actually won the first writing award. It was like a small award, but still like it helped me to, be more confident and grow more confident in my craft. So this is one way that you can reframe your past and turn something negative to be the fuel for your own personal or career goals. Another way to reframe, like to create new meaning from your past, is basically seeing things as like lessons, right? Seeing the past as like lessons for your growth, and and also for your purpose. So I'm sure you have heard, or some of you might not have heard, the book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. And I think this book is just a great testament to how, having a purpose, like, having a vision, and learning lessons, right? Learning to use meaning to our advantage helps us to not just, to not just live on, to not just be able to get by, but it's also to help us to survive like major stuff. Like obviously he was a Holocaust survivor, and not claiming that, we would have the same experience, definitely not, but it is the same principle behind it, that, being able to derive meaning, right? And whether it's like purpose or some kind of lessons from the past, and helping to see that it is a meaningful, purpose driven event rather than just something that was terrible, can actually help us to learn to live with, and even to create really great results from like what we have gone through, right? So another way is to see the lessons and the opportunities in whatever that we have experienced. So of course I've shown I've shed light on some of the opportunities that I have seen from my past, like using it for my creative goals. But there's also like a part in the lessons, right? Like, whether we have gone through like a bad dating experience, or maybe a not so great friend experience. It's like, what can we learn from ourselves and from other people moving forward? And if we can really learn the lesson here, like if we can really see what there is to learn, then this experience becomes not just negative purely, but it can actually be a very helpful, and in fact a very positive experience in retrospect. Like, not saying that we want to go through that again, right? It's like it can be really, really hard, but seeing the lessons that we can learn, so that moving forward we are doing things very vastly differently, can actually change the trajectory of how we do things. So one example to illustrate this is, I've been seeing on TikTok, right? There are some like a lot of young girls, right, who are basically crying, and they are complaining that their boyfriend or their ex-boyfriend like use them as sort of like a lesson, um, so that when they move on to the next girl, they treat the next girl better, and they like sort of knew, how to behave, right, thanks to them. And now they are like, with the next girl, maybe they're engaged, maybe they're married, and they're like, why am I the lesson? Like, why am I not the end destination, right? But another way to see this, right, using again the reframing technique, is maybe that guy was also the lesson for you, right? So maybe that guy was also like your teacher. So he is also like the middle guy, right? He's not like your end destination, clearly, because you guys are not married, but he was also the one who to help you to learn those lessons, so that you can, know what to do the next time that a better match, in fact, probably like your actual, partner comes around, then you can actually use the skill sets, and maybe, you might be driven to go for some kind of, coaching, or, to some self-reflection. And next time when you meet the right person or a better person, you would know things that you didn't know before. So that guy also served a purpose in your life. It's not just you, devoting your time and energy on him, but he is also like somebody who is a stepping stone, right, in your life, because he's the one like guiding you to become the right person for your eventual partner. So in this way, you are seeing him as again like a fuel for your own development, rather than just seeing yourself as somebody who has sacrificed. A lot of people actually become a more like, for lack of a better word, a more like a weak person because of past experiences that were not great. So maybe you have to be in a negative job experience or a negative friendship experience to really know what you want. Because a lot of times we don't know what we want until we see what we do not like. So sometimes we need that a bit of like a kick to realize, oh, these are my values, right? These are my principles. These are what I'm looking for. And I need to stick by these things in my future, like what I am looking for in somebody else or in a career, so that I don't remain in a place that I don't want to be. Another way to really use this reframing is by changing our interpretation of other people's behaviors. So there's this famous quote by this French writer called, I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly, Anais Nin, right? Anyway, I don't know French, so I'm not sure if that's the correct pronunciation, but this quote is floating around the internet a lot, and it's called, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. And this is so true. A lot of times, right, we think that we are seeing the truth in somebody's behaviors, right, in somebody's temperament, or in the way that they are talking about us, but it's really just our own interpretation. So for example, if you are a very confident person, right, you may see someone walk by you, somebody you knew maybe from years back, and not say hi. And if you are somebody who is very like, oh, I'm great, and I think I'm a great person, and you will see that as maybe this person is just forgetful, right? Maybe he was, too many years has passed and he didn't recognize you. Maybe you look better than before. Or you may think that person is just a shy and reserved individual, right? However, if you are coming from a very like insecure place and you are like having a bad time, a bad experience, you may see the exact same person doing the exact same thing, just walking by, not saying hi to you, and you are going to interpret it very personally. You're going to see that person as being rude, being abrasive, like, oh, why is this person like ignoring me on purpose, like not wanting to acknowledge my existence, right? So that is also an example where you can use the NI reframing to your advantage and remind yourself that you can create the meaning and the interpretation that you want, because we can never know what the other person is thinking. We can never really read other people. We can never really know whether something is a fact. So a lot of things that we see in social situations and other situations are really just our own interpretation. So we can choose to take things in a less personal way, and not to create this kind of drama out of like nothing, basically. Because when you are in a bad mood, you will notice that even when you're just going to a store, right, even when you're just doing simple things like buying food, you may see the person taking a bit longer, or you may have some kind of miscommunication, and it quickly blows up because you are not in a good state, right? And you are choosing to see things that may or may not be there, and so when we consciously choose to interpret things in a way that benefits us, we can actually change our own behaviors, and in turn how things actually pan out. So that is all for today's video, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to support me, you can subscribe, like the video, as well as buy me a coffee, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.